A very good morning and a warm welcome to you, dear students, to your English class. Today we'll be looking at a very beautiful story, that is chapter 2.5, The Happy Prince. Here you can see the picture of a statue of one prince with a little swallow bird and an angel and king or god. This is God here, an angel here, and this is the prince. Alright, let us see what is there in this lesson. It's a very beautiful lesson, children. You are going to enjoy it. Firstly, let us do a activity. It's called the happiness activity. Right? And happiness activity. Now, what makes you happy, children? What is happiness according to you? Tell me, what is happiness? What makes you happy? Think about it. I'm giving you a little time. Think about it. What makes you happy? Okay, thought about it? Good. Children, observe these pictures closely. Look at all these pictures. You have to tell me what makes you happy from these pictures. Okay? These are just some examples. You can tell of your own also. For example, this can make you happy. Being with parents, enjoying with them, going out for picnics, maybe going out for a movie, right? Or even going to a temple, going to pray, going to church, anywhere else. You want to go outing. And next, hugging your mother, hugging your father, that can make you happy. Or maybe when you win a prize or a trophy, is that making you happy? Or later on, maybe you can like to feed the poor, help the poor out. That makes you happy. Or teaching poor people, children, teaching poor children, helping the poor out. Then playing with your friends. Does that make you happy, children? Later on, this can also make you happy. Maybe your teacher you like, or your teacher makes you happy, teaches you nicely, and you like the teacher teaching you. Next one, maybe this makes you happy. Playing the organ or playing or instrument or singing makes you happy. Dancing, playing a flute or violin, or maybe you are good an artist. You're good an artist. You're good in drawing. You want to become an artist. That will make you happy. Or maybe celebrating festivals. I know everybody of you like festivals, right? Some of you like this festival. Some of you celebrate this festival. Some of you celebrate all festivals also. Right? So that also can make you happy. So what is your happiness, children? What will make you happy? What makes you happy? You have to tell me, okay? Then let's go ahead. Children, we will firstly watch a short animated clip of the first part of The Happy Prince that you have read in the last lecture.
Who are you? Who are you? I am the Happy Prince. I am the Happy Prince.
Then why are you crying? I am wet with your tears. I can see a woman at the table stitching a dress for the queen's ladies for a dance in the palace. Her little boy is lying on a bed in the corner of the room. He is very ill. He is crying, and she can give him water from the river only. Little bird, will you take my red jewel to her, since I cannot move from here? My friends are waiting for me in Egypt. It is very cold here, but I will stay with you for one night. Tomorrow I will take the jewel. Okay? Thank you, little bird. Thank you so much. The bird took the red jewel from the prince's waist and flew away over the roofs of the town. He passed the palace and heard the sound of dancing. The bird flew over the lush green hills and the beautiful flowing river, and he flew and flew and flew. The bird came to the poor little house and placed the red ruby on the table beside the mother. The bird flew to the bed, moving the air around the boy's face with its wings. The boy felt better and went to sleep. The bird returned very happily to the prince. The prince said, "Thank you so much, dear little bird. You have done a great deed for me. Thank you so much." So, my dear children, the moral of the story is always do good deeds for others. Thank you.
Now let's come to our story. Okay, when you will be seeing the story, you have to keep some points in your mind, some story points to think about. You can see one child over here and another child over here. They're thinking about, so similarly you have to also think. Now it's the story of a prince, okay? And these are the points, 3 questions you have to keep in mind. First is, what was happiness for the prince? Okay, what was happiness for the prince? Then how he wished to help others. How he wished to help others. Third is, how a swallow, swallow means a bird. It's a one kind of breed of bird. It's called a swallow, okay? How the swallow bird helped him to do the good deeds to help others. How a swallow bird helped him to do the good deeds to help others. Okay? Now keep these questions in mind and you have to answer it later after you watch the story. Now second thing you have to keep in mind is when the story is going on, you have to find out two things. Two things you have to find out. One is, which deed touched your heart? Which deed? There will be some deeds going on. Okay, the bird will be doing some deeds, some good works. Deeds means good works. What good works touched your heart? Secondly, second question, what would you like to do in place of the bird? Suppose you were in place of the bird, what would you do? And how would you help the people in the story? How would you help the people in the story? Okay, now let us see the story now.
So our lesson for today, children, will be one in standard 8th English. So please open your English textbook before you proceed to watch this video. And the name of the lesson is The Happy Prince. Now, as the name indicates, it is a story, and it is a story about a prince with a very large heart. And also, it is a story about a tiny bird, the swallow, who becomes friends with this happy prince and who does not leave the prince's side even when faced with death. So this is a rather long story, children. If you refer to your textbook, you will be able to see that this is a long story. And along with the story, you have so many grammar and vocabulary exercises in the warming up part as well as in the English workshop part. So that means that we will be doing the story in 2 or more parts. Okay, so today in the first part of the story we will just see what the story is and we will do just a few exercises and then we will read the remaining for the next time. So let us now start with the story and let us see what the story of the Happy Prince was. So see, there was a small town in a place far, far away, and there in the middle of the town there was a square, and on the in the town square there was a tall podium on which there was a statue of the Happy Prince. So this statue, it stood high above the city, and it was a center of attraction for all the people, not only for the people living there in the city but also for the people visiting from outside. Okay, and this statue was a very beautiful one, and it was covered with gold plate, real gold plate, and in the hands of the prince there was a long sword which had many beautiful golden gems on it, and the princess's eyes were also made up of different kind of, you can say, expensive precious stone. So this was about the statue. So the statue was a really valuable one, children, with lots of gold plating on it, as well as lots of very, very precious, you can say, stones like ruby, emerald, diamonds, etc. So this statue was the pride of the city, and the people would come and look at the statue and feel really proud that this particular statue was theirs. It was part of their city. So when the story begins, you will see that people used to call him the Happy Prince. So you see, this is the prince's statue, and these are the people standing and watching him, pointing to him, pointing to the precious stone on his sword, in his eyes, on his crown, okay, and also pointing to the golden color that he has on his body because of the gold plating. So that is why people used to call him the Happy Prince, and he had a smiling face. That is why people used to call him the Happy Prince. But was the prince really happy? That we will come to know when we see the remaining part of the story. So one day what happened was, on a cold and windy night, a swallow wandered into the square. Now, what is a swallow? A swallow is a kind of a small bird which resembles the sparrows that we see around our house. Okay, and this swallow, see, this is one more image of the swallow in flight, that is when the swallow is flying. So can you see, it's such a beautiful bird. It is a small bird, and these birds are migratory in nature. Migratory means they cannot stand the cold weather, the cold climate. So what happens is, when they know that winter is approaching, when they understand that winter is coming close, what they do is they go and fly to warmer places. Now children, the winter in the place where we live, that is in Maharashtra, it is not very severe, isn't it? We just feel a little cold, and then we drink some hot tea, we eat some hot bhajiyas, and we are good. But in some countries, winters are horrible. Everywhere around you will see the place is covered with ice and it is freezing cold. Okay, so people cannot of course go from one place to another, but birds like the swallow, they in big groups, in big flocks, what they do is they fly from the cold places to the warmer places before winter. Okay, not after winter sets in. They will die because of the cold. So this poor little swallow, he was also flying away to a warm place, but he got lost and he wandered, and then you will see how he came to this square. And who was there in the square? Yes, our Happy Prince was standing in the square. And let us see what happened and what kind of friendship began between the swallow and the prince. So circling the square, the swallow saw the statue of the Happy Prince. So the swallow went around the circle, and he was finding for a place to hide during the night, a place to save himself from the cold during the night. Okay, so as he flew around, he saw the Happy Prince and the statue. So he was very happy. He said, okay, come on, let me take refuge, or let me try to spend my night under the statue of the Happy Prince. And that is why he went close to the statue and he settled down near its feet. And what did it say? It said, "Oh, it's too cold to fly tonight. I will stay here for the night. It's so cold." And it was really very cold. Okay, so he hid under the legs of the prince and he said, "Tonight I will somehow spend my night here." Suddenly, droplets of water started falling on the swallow. The swallow started looking around to see whether it is raining. But then it was not raining anywhere. Just these drops of water were falling on him. He flew up and he tried to see from where the water is coming. And then when he reached the top, he saw that the prince's eye was filled with tears. Can you see? The swallow close to the princess's face and the princess's eye is filled with tears. That means he is not happy. But the name is the Happy Prince. Okay, people called him the Happy Prince. So do happy people cry? No. So why was the prince crying? Why was he not happy? Let us see now in this next part of the story. So naturally, when you see someone crying, what do? You ask them, "What is wrong with you? Can I be of some help to you?" So the same way, a poor swallow, he asked the prince. The prince said that he had been very happy when he was alive. So you can see here, the prince was really happy when he was a small boy because he did not know anything in life. He used to live inside this big palace. He used to play with his friends. He used to have lots of ice creams and chocolates and goodies to eat. Okay, so the prince was really happy. There was nothing that was worrying the prince. And he used to feel that everyone else is also happy like him. That is why he was called as the Happy Prince, isn't it? But he said that once he became a statue, he could see the whole town and he could see so much misery and poverty. So what is he saying? He's telling the swallow, "Now when I am a statue, I can look over the whole town. I can see so much misery and poverty." Okay, because why? He is tall, isn't it? I told you, his statue is on a tall podium, on a tall stand kind of thing. So he can see the whole town around him. And then he can see people who are poor, who are sad, who are in pain, who are hungry, who are cold. All these things the prince can see now. And that is why his mind is filled with sorrow for these people. So he's sharing it with the swallow, who soon becomes a very good friend of this prince. Now what does he ask the swallow to do for him? So he tells the swallow that, "See, my dear swallow, there is this lady who is sitting and stitching clothes for the queen's maids. Alright, but see, she's looking so sad. Her head is bent low. Alright, why is the reason her head is bent low? Because her child is very sick." Can you see the sick child lying there in the background? So the swallow goes and checks, and the swallow says, "Yes, my dear prince, indeed, there is this lady who's a seamstress." Now seamstress means tailor, okay? So there's a lady who's a tailor and she's stitching clothes, but she's very sad because she does not have anything to give her poor sick child, because she does not have any money with her. So now the prince requests the swallow to pluck a ruby from his sword and take it to the child. So the swallow does it. The swallow plucked out the ruby from the sword of the prince and he carried it to the child's house. Okay, and he placed it on the window and he knocked on the window. So the mother came and she opened it and she saw the beautiful red ruby. And she realized that, oh my God, now I can sell this ruby. I can get some money and I can feed my child and I can also get medicines for her. So this is how the happy prince and the swallow started helping people in need. Okay, but remember, the prince had to give up one of the precious stones on his sword in order to help this child. Let us see which other people they helped together now. So now the work was done. The ruby was given to the tailor and her child. So the swallow tells the prince, "Goodbye, prince. I must fly south now." Why I should fly south? Because otherwise the cold will set in and cool breeze will start blowing. The temperature will become freezingly cold and then I will die in the ice. So goodbye, he says to the prince. I must fly south now. But our prince makes one more request of the swallow. He tells him, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, far away on the other side of the city, I can see a young man in his attic. He's trying to write a play for the stage. He dreams of being a writer, but it is very cold and he cannot afford wood for the fire, and no one is buying his books." Okay, so the prince now wants the swallow to help this particular writer. Now the swallow wants to go because the swallow knows that if he stays, he might die. But the swallow also realizes that the responsibility that the prince is giving him of helping people is also no less important. Okay, so let's see what the swallow decides. So the swallow decides to stay back, and the swallow plucks out one of the princess's eyes and he flew to the writer in the attic. See? He takes one of the eyes of the prince. So now the prince can see only with the other eye. And he takes this precious stone, which was part of the princess's statue, and he gives it to the writer. The writer is also very happy. And the writer feels, oh, someone has read my books. And that is why he's given me this reward. Okay, so this makes the writer very happy. So you see how the prince, he was sad because others were sad. Now when others are becoming happy, the prince also is becoming happy from the inside. But the body of the prince, the statue of the prince, is losing its beauty, isn't it? Then what happens is, the third instance is when the prince sees a poor girl selling eggs on the street. She's asking people, requesting people, please someone buy these eggs, please someone buy these eggs. And accidentally what happens is, she drops the entire basket of eggs. And because she drops the eggs, eggs break up. The eggs break and then she's very scared that her father will punish her when she goes back home without any money. Because broken eggs no one will buy, isn't it? So the prince now wants the swallow to give this girl his other eye also. Now the swallow gets very upset. See, all the eggs are broken and the poor girl is very, very sad now. Okay, she doesn't know how to go home and how to face her father. So the prince says, take my other eye and give it to that girl. But the swallow says, no, I can't do that. You will be blind then, prince. He says, prince, you will not be able to see anything then. You will become totally blind because one eye I have already given the writer. If the other eye, if I give it to the girl, you will become totally blind. But the prince won't listen to him. The prince says, no, nothing doing. It doesn't matter if I cannot see, I am a statue, but that girl must live. And so the swallow goes and gives that girl his second eye. Where did this come from? Says the girl. Oh swallow, thank you so much, says the girl. Now the swallow suddenly starts feeling the joy of giving. Okay, when people thank him and when he sees people happy, he also starts feeling the joy. And he decides to stay back with the prince, come what may. If it is cold and if he will die, it doesn't matter to the swallow anymore because he wants to stay with his friend, the prince. So, now that the prince had given both of his eyes away, he couldn't see, he had become totally blind. See? The prince can't see at all. So the sparrow said, "Dear prince, I will stay with you." Okay, the prince is asking him to go. The prince asks the swallow, okay, now you go and you join your friends and go to a warm place, my dear friend, and be alive. But the swallow says, "No, I will not go. No, my prince, I cannot leave you alone now. I will be your eyes." I will be your eyes means I will see things and I will tell you what all I can see. The prince tries to stop the sparrow, but the sparrow wouldn't listen at all. Okay, the swallow says, "No, I want to stay with you because you're such a good person and I want to help you." So the swallow decides to stay back. Okay, then slowly and slowly they start helping so many other people also. So there are so many other people who are hungry and who are cold, okay, who are sick, who are poor, who do not have anything to eat. So what they do is they strip the gold from the body of the prince and they give it to those children. So see what the prince is telling the swallow: "Please strip some gold leaf from my body and bring it to those children." And the swallow says, "Yes, prince." And so this is what they start doing. See, every day the swallow would strip bits of gold from the princess's body. And slowly the prince doesn't look beautiful anymore. The prince is not covered in gold anymore. And there are no precious jewels decorating the statue of the prince anymore. And the prince suddenly becomes unattractive also to the people. As more and more people become happy, the princess's body grew more and more ugly. Okay, can you see? Slowly and slowly the swallow is stripping off whatever gold is there on the statue of the prince. Finally comes a day when the prince is totally stripped of all the gold and winter has also come. And the swallow now starts feeling the cold and his body starts freezing. Can you see the change in the scene? Here, look at the place. How does it look? It looks warm, isn't it? But look at this picture. How does it look? Everywhere it is ice and snow and white in color. Now, the swallow cannot survive in this kind of cold. I told you in the beginning of the lesson, they are migratory birds, isn't it? And so, the swallow says, "Thank you, prince. You have taught me the true meaning of happiness. Thank you so much." And saying this, the swallow, drops dead at the feet of the prince. Can you see the poor swallow? I'm feeling so sad for him that he could have flown away and joined his friends, isn't it? But he did not do that. Like the prince had a heart of gold, in the same way the swallow also had a very big heart. He was also a kind creature. Alright, and the swallow died. And imagine if your best friend dies, what will happen? The prince was very, very sad, and the prince started crying, and he was not happy anymore. He said, "My poor faithful swallow, you didn't fly south and you died because of me." Okay, and very soon you will see, after the winter season was over, the people came out into the square and they looked at the statue and they said, "Look at that. What has happened to the statue?" So the statue is no longer golden. There are no more precious stones on the statue. They said, "Tear the statue down. It is not the pride of our village or our city anymore. The statue is making the whole square look grubby." Grubby means dirty. "We've got to tear it down right away." So they said that, and they tore down the statue of the happy prince and they cast it into the fire so that it would melt. Okay, now you can see a heart there in the fire. See here, the heart in the fire. So everything else melted except for the heart of the prince. Alright, what they did was they picked up the heart of the prince and they picked up the swallow's body and they simply threw it away. Now God called his angel and God told his angel, "Bring me the two most beautiful things in the world." And the angel said, "Yes, Lord." And guess what? What did the angel go and bring for God, for his Lord? He bought two things for his God. Let us see what they were. So they were the dead swallow and the heart of the prince. So God was very pleased. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that God does not bother about people who look good and who decorate themselves but do not do anything for others. God has got no love and God has got no pity and mercy for such people. God loves those who help others. Okay, so God was very pleased. And what did God say? God said, "The swallow and the prince will live eternally in heaven." That is, they will always live in heaven. And that is what happened, children, towards the end of the story. See, the prince and the swallow lived on happily ever after in heaven. So the two friends, they were united and they were again happy and they lived in heaven happily ever after. But you will see that whenever they saw sad people, they would still get upset. But sometimes they would look down upon the world and shed tears for the people below. Okay? So even after dying, even after going to heaven, they were still having a heart which was full of mercy, which was full of compassion, and which was full of empathy for the poor and for the downtrodden people. So wasn't that the wonderful story of the happy prince, children? So now we have done the story. Now slowly we will move on to the exercises. So we will do just one exercise today and the remaining we will leave for the next part of the lesson. So let us look at this particular exercise. Before that, let us see who has written the story. So Oscar Wilde was an Irish poet and playwright. So he used to write poetry and he used to write plays and dramas. After writing in different forms throughout the 1880s, in the 1890s, he became one of the most popular playwrights in London. Okay, so he was a very, very famous playwright.
So students, I hope you like the emotional story, right? It was very emotional because happiness comes from inside in your heart, right? This is what is shown in the story. True happiness is in your heart, in which you give out to others. When you're selfless, thinking about others, you don't think about yourself. You think about helping others and doing good for the others. This is what is there in the story. See, even the bird, he was supposed to go to Egypt, right? To save himself, to keep himself warm. But he saw the heart of the prince and he knew that he was doing a good work. And the bird was the only one who could help him. And so he remained there and he helped the prince. So like this also, I want you all to be like these students. Help people, do good for the society, especially now these times, people of this pandemic. You require people who you can help, who need help. There are a lot of people who require help. You can do it. You can help in small ways. You can help the people, right?